As a CELTA trainer, I've watched hundreds of lessons where trainee teachers run out of time and the lesson ends before they have time to do the final activity. Sound familiar? If this is you, keep watching. I'm Jo Gakonga, and if we're meeting for the first time, I've been a CELTA trainer for the past 20 years or more, and I make videos at elttraining.com for CELTA trainees and novice teachers and people a bit further down their teaching road. If this is helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe. I make a new video every week. The big problem with running out of time is that all parts of a lesson aren't equal in value, and the final activity, the one that's in danger of falling off the end of your lesson, is often the more authentic practice or feedback on activities, and those are the most important parts of the lesson in terms of learning. So what can you do to avoid this? I've got 7 useful tips for you, and the last 2 are the most important, so keep watching for those. Number 1 is don't plan too much. This seems so obvious, but if you even have the slightest hint of an idea that you've got too much in your lesson, you almost certainly have. You make the decision about how much you include in a lesson. That's your job as a teacher. But it's better not to feel too rushed. Less is usually more. It's better to do a smaller amount and have time for practice and do it thoroughly than to feel as if you're rushing through something and not teach anything very meaningful. Number 2 is you might be thinking that it's difficult to know how long activities will take. And you're right. It's true that whether you do exactly the same activity with 2 different groups, it'll take 2 different amounts of time. But you can help yourself by trying out the activity yourself or getting someone to ask a friend, for example, to try it out for you. Just remember that you'll do it faster than your learners will. Tip number 3 is to be realistic, even conservative about your timings. Add some extra time to an activity. If you think it's going to take 5 minutes, give it 7 or 8. And remember that nothing takes 2 minutes in a language lesson. So I'd really avoid putting in a stage where you're expecting it to take only that long. Number 4 is that you might be thinking if you're that conservative with timings, you run the risk of running out of things to do. Now, no one wants this. It's a horrible feeling to be standing up in front of a class with nothing planned and them all looking at you expectantly. That's not nice. But the answer is to include 1 or 2 flexi-stages in your lesson. These are things that you can do and they're useful extra practice of the language you're teaching or the skill that you're teaching, but they're not essential and you could miss them out if you had to. The good thing about this is that also if you run out of time, you've got it there to add in. Tip number 5 is a small practical one. It's a good idea to add times on your lesson plan, not just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but the actual time that you expect it to be at that point in your lesson. That way you can easily see whether you're running to time or not and whether you need to include your flexi stage or not. Keep an eye on the time in the lesson as well. Make sure that you can see a clock or a watch or your phone, something easily. Okay, here are the final 2 tips and they're the important ones and they're linked. Number 6 is that you'll write an aim for each stage of your plan. So you need to look at that and think about why you're doing this activity. What's its purpose? If it's just a warmer to get them engaged and interested, it's not that important and it shouldn't take too long. 5 minutes is probably enough. You need to make sure that you prioritise the important parts, the freer practice, the authentic practice, the feedback stages. Give them more time because they're more important. And my final piece of advice relates to this, and that's to plan from the back. So put in those important freer practice stages or feedback stages first in your plan that will come at the end. Put how long you want them to take and then work backwards from that. That way you'll be able to see how much time's possible. Don't try and squeeze everything in. I hope those tips were useful. If they were, then check out my site and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.